Hey guys, this is going to be a hard one. As you've probably seen from the title, this video is going to be all about my breastfeeding journey with Abby and how it came to a sad conclusion. I'm not really sure how to go about filming this video, and that's probably why I've put it off for so long. I feel like I'm in a good place now, and that's mostly what I've been waiting for with filming this video. Is I wanted to be in a place of peace and clarity about the whole thing. I didn't want to film a video showing sadness, and that was a part of my journey, but it's not the part that I wanted to share with you today. So I think I'm ready to talk about it, and I'm hoping that this will be a video that will be useful or helpful or cathartic to you in some way. I'm gonna go ahead and say something that I don't usually say at the beginning of my videos, and that is I'm going to be turning on comment approvals for this video, and I have a good reason why. I've generally found that topics like this seem to attract new viewers, like people who aren't my typical subscribers. And there's two types of people who are drawn to this kind of video. There are the moms who are struggling with their own breastfeeding journey, and they are looking for advice or comfort or support. And then there are other people who seem to be trolling the web, looking for people talking about their breastfeeding journey ending, and they show up there just to shame them or criticize them or tell them that they were wrong. And I'm not going to let those people prey on these people, if you know what I mean. I've been on YouTube now for 2 years. My skin has really toughened up to the criticism that you get by putting yourself out there, and I'm making a choice to put myself out there. So I know I'll get criticism, and I usually take that on the chin. But in this case, because I know there's going to be people here who are coming to look for that comfort and support, I'm just not going to let these people over here in their own effort to make themselves feel good by pushing others down. Like I'm not going to let those people hurt and discourage these people who are here sincerely looking for help or advice. So I am never going to censor anybody's opinion, whether that opinion, in my opinion, is right or wrong, whether it's well-informed or ill-informed, whether it's one that I agree with or don't agree with. I'm not going to censor anybody's opinion, but I am going to censor the way that your opinions are stated. So it's okay to disagree with me, and you can do so in the comments. But if you're going to be nasty or demeaning or derogatory or just mommy shaming in general, I'm not going to approve your comment. End of story. Let's all be respectful toward each other, and remember that ending a breastfeeding journey is at the very best, like best case scenario, it's a bittersweet thing with mixed emotions. And for most people, it's a painful, emotional, sometimes devastating thing. Now, let's get into my story. I have 2 children. My first one is a boy named Roman, and he is about to turn 3. And I have a 1-year-old daughter named Abby. I've had the exact same breastfeeding experience with both of them, and I made a lot of mistakes with Roman, my first, that I tried to avoid with Abby, and I had the same result. So not to go too much into the story with Roman, because I think I've talked about that on my channel before, but I had extremely bad supply issues basically from the beginning with Roman. I was never producing enough, and so he was always hungry, always crying, and by his 6-month appointment, he was very much underweight. And my pediatrician was like, I support you doing the breastfeeding thing, but if he doesn't put on weight soon, I'm going to insist as your doctor that he goes on formula or supplementing in some other way. And so it was just a few short months after that, when he was maybe like 9 months old, that I was nursing him, and he had some teeth that had come in and he bit me, and I just yelped. I just didn't mean to, but I screamed, and it scared him so bad that he never nursed again after that. No matter what I did, I could not get him to nurse. And I was always kind of thankful for that, to be honest, because I was kind of coming to grips with the fact that I was not producing enough to fill him up and keep him healthy and happy. But I was too prideful or determined or stubborn to admit that to myself. And I felt like through that whole situation, God had kind of taken the decision out of my hands. He had said, I know you can't emotionally cope with ending this breastfeeding journey right now, and so I'm just gonna take you out of the equation. Sorry, he's not gonna breastfeed anymore. You have to figure out something else. And looking back, that was probably the best thing that could have happened for my son, because he immediately, I'm talking the first time he had a bottle of formula after a couple weeks of trying to get him transitioned to it, he just smiled and he seemed happy and full and content and he slept well, and it was a game changer. So when I became pregnant with Abby, I started researching everything. I was going to figure out how to make sure that I was not a low producer with her because I did not want to go through that again. I had sat down at one point and spoken to my doula, who explained to me that due to some of the complicated issues regarding my home birth of Roman, I had some health issues and some things that were just complicated, and there was some trauma around his birth. And my doula kind of said to me, listen, there was a whole science behind it that I'm not going to get into right now. But basically her message was everything that happened around the 70-hour labor and extreme bleed out that you had with Roman probably impacted your milk supply. She said, so I'm not going to be too concerned that you're going to have supply issues. You're reasonably young, you're healthy, you should be able to produce the right amount of milk. But I still kept researching and just doing everything that I could to try to make sure that I was in the best possible scenario for breastfeeding my daughter. When I went into labor with her, it was looking like slow prodromal labor, which is what I had with Roman. And in an effort to try to get things going, I decided to get out my breast pump and try pumping a little bit. And I was so encouraged that while I was in early labor with her, I was able to pump about an ounce out of each side. And I was just like, yes, we are on track. I'm already producing. This is amazing. And so I felt like things were good. We were off to a great start. And to be honest, from the very beginning, it was easy breastfeeding with her. I was pumping a lot and I was producing a lot of milk. I was probably each time I pumped, even at the very beginning, I was getting at least 6 ounces. She seemed happy and full and fed. I was drinking milk production teas, eating milk production cookies, drinking lots of water and Gatorade, and avoiding exercise, and just like anything anyone had ever said, wives' tale or not, that you could do to help you produce more milk. That's what I was doing. And I was really proud of myself for the stash that I built up in a very short amount of time. But I want to say around the time Abby was like 4 months old, my baby, who was always happy and always sleeping basically through the night, she just changed. And all of a sudden she became clingy and fussy and needy, just crying all the time, wanting to nurse all the time, and also not sleeping through the night. Just, I was noticing she was waking up lots and lots more during the night. And I started getting that sinking feeling that this was happening again with my milk supply. And I just was like, please God, not again. Like I just for once want to feed a baby until she's a year old and not have to do the formula thing, and not because there's anything wrong with formula. It was just my personal goal was to make it a year. And I was so distraught when I started seeing those signs from her that we were going down this path again of low production. So while all this was going on and she was not sleeping as well and getting clingy and everything, I started noticing that whenever I would pump, just less and less was coming out. And it's amazing how your brain can play tricks on you, because I started saying, well, she's nursing more, so of course there's not as much coming out when I pump. Like that's got to be why. And I rode that out for a couple of weeks. But then it got to where when I pumped, it was like nothing was coming out. I would pump for 20 minutes and get half an ounce. And I was trying to feed Abby and then weigh her before and then feed her and then weigh her afterward. And things were just confusing me. It didn't seem like she had gained any ounces before and after the feeding, but I thought maybe, I don't know. I just was rationalizing so much at the time. It's even kind of hard to get myself mentally back in that place. It seems like it should have been clear. So one thing that my husband did in an effort to be helpful, but that ultimately was not, was he said, I'm sure it's just your pump. There's a problem with your pump. I was using a manual pump at the time, and he was like, the pump parts maybe aren't working very well. Let's go back to the store and let's buy you another manual pump. So I did that. I went to the store and I bought a different brand of manual pump, and I tried that. I waited a really long time. I waited till Abby went down for her nap. She napped for a while, like at least 2 hours or something like that. And I tried pumping and nothing came out, like just nothing. And I still at that time was trying to convince myself of things. So I was like, well, there's something wrong with this pump too. What's wrong with all the pumps? It even got to a point where I was considering going and purchasing a $200 electric pump just to see. But at that point, I feel like I was kind of starting to come around to the reality that this was just not happening. So the thing was, while all that was going on, I was becoming what I felt was pretty close to depressed. I really felt like I was starting to deal with some postpartum depression. I could recognize it in myself. I was not as enthusiastic or energetic about things. I was easily frustrated with my children. I wasn't being a good mom to Roman, actually it was kind of weird. I found myself rejecting Abby a little bit. Like I didn't want to be around Abby. I wanted to spend all my time with Roman, but when I was with Roman, I was preoccupied thinking about how upset I was about Abby. And so then I wasn't really being there with Roman either, even though that's what I wanted to be doing. And I just felt myself spiraling out of control. And I don't know if you guys would have noticed on social media, but I really just put my head down and I started, everything that I did on social was just related to the business. I wasn't sharing much about my personal life. I wasn't giving updates on the baby. I just was like, let's talk about the sensible mama and don't ask me any questions. So it was a really hard time. But after a lot of thought and reflection and prayer, I went back to thinking about what it was like when I gave up on the journey with Roman and how painful that was at first, but how much better life was when I finally made that decision and how good how proud of my, dang it. How proud of myself I felt as a mom for, at that time, making a decision that hurt me, but that I knew was the best for my son. I felt proud of myself for putting aside my own ideas of who I was supposed to be as a mom, putting aside my own goals and my own sort of standard that I was holding myself to say, I will take this on. I will bear the shame of being a formula feeding mom. I will deal with my own guilt that I'm going to have, and I will do this for him because this is what he needs, because breastfeeding is not working for us. And I'll have to say that I never felt shame. I thought I was going to, but I never did. I never felt like shame about switching to formula. As soon as it happened, I was like, I'm a good mom because I did exactly what he needed, even when it hurt. And so as I reflected on that more and more, I said to myself, you know what? Abby deserves to be fed and to sleep through the night. I deserve to sleep through the night. My son Roman deserves to have a good mommy who is happy and healthy and not constantly overwhelmed and upset about this breastfeeding journey. And that was when I decided to stop. Unfortunately, the transition with Abby was really hard. She just was not having it. And it took probably 2.5 weeks to get her transitioned over. It was a lot of mixing formula with like baby oatmeal and rice cereal and things like that, just trying to get her to get the taste of it and be willing to eat it. But I was spoon feeding it to her in a spoon because she would not take the formula in a bottle. But for whatever reason, if I put it in a spoon, she would eat it. And so it was just a mess. So many tears of just sitting her in her little chair and just crying my eyes out, trying to get this baby fed. It was the worst. And then one day I was getting really stressed out because I was leaving to go to the ABC conference for the Sensible Mama, and she still was not weaned. I was not producing enough to pump milk for her, and I didn't know how this baby was going to be fed. And what I kept thinking was like, I'm going to have to bring her along with me on this professional conference, and it's not going to look very professional of me, and it's just going to be a mess. And so while I was thinking about all that and just sticking with it and just praying that maybe she would switch over, one day I had her sitting on the floor in the living room and I handed her a bottle of formula and she sucked it down. And I have never cried like I cried at that moment. I cried my freaking eyes out. It was happy tears. So happy and relieved that this baby finally got it and understood that, like, I know this isn't what you want, but it is what you need. And look at you, you're fed now. Like your belly is full. I know it's full because I watched, 5 ounces go into you. It was awesome. It was so good. And from that point on, she had no problem taking the bottle. Something clicked with her where she realized, like, wow, I feel really good after having one of these bottles instead of feeling hungry all the time. And so, looking back on the whole ordeal, I think that my big come away from it all is that I think I agree with the people who say anybody can breastfeed. For the most part, I agree with that. I think because I've heard stories of people overcoming obstacles far worse than mine and being able to breastfeed their babies. And I think that is amazing. When I hear those stories, my heart just swells for those moms, and I feel a little jealous of them, but mostly I feel happy for them that they were able to do that. And it must feel so good to know that you overcame so much because you believed so fully in breastfeeding your baby. But even though maybe I think that physiologically, any mom can overcome, for the most part, breastfeeding issues, I don't know if all of us are able to mentally and emotionally overcome it. And that's really what was the big come away for me, was that, sure, I probably could have had a lactation consultant come to my house several times a week and work with me. I probably could have cut out exercise, which was the only thing that was making me happy at the time. I could have probably changed my diet or tried this position or that position, held her in the football hold, or there's a million things I probably could have done. But at that time in my life, I did not have the mental and emotional capacity to even try those things. I was slipping away. Yeah, that's the only way I know how to put it. I was slipping away into darkness of just not being a good mom, not being a good wife, not being a good friend, just consumed by the overwhelming fear and worry and stress over the fact that I knew that my baby wasn't being fed, and I was still forcing her down this road anyway because that was what I thought I was supposed to do. So, my position, even when I was full on, like, for myself, breastfeeding was it. That was all I was going to do. Even back then, I always said fed is best. And any mom needs to do whatever she thinks is right. And if that means giving formula from the very first, then that's what she needs to do. But now I feel even more strongly about that. I just feel like, yes, it is okay to want for yourself to breastfeed. And it is okay to feel that for your baby, breast is best. And if you feel that doing whatever it takes to make that happen is what you need to do, then I am all for you doing that. And I support you and love you for that. But if you're that mom who's on the fence and you're just saying, I don't know if I can do this anymore, I just want you to know there's nothing wrong with giving your baby formula. And there's nothing wrong with doing it for the simple reason that you can be a better mom because of it. And then let's not even go into the whole other element of this story, which is that despite being so much of an advocate for normalizing breastfeeding, despite being the woman who will fight anyone out in public if I see them harassing or threatening a woman who's breastfeeding and shaming her or whatever, I will be the first one there with my finger in someone's face telling them to back off of that poor woman. But despite all that, I could not breastfeed in public. Even with a cover, I was horribly self-conscious, sweating profusely, upset, nervous, embarrassed. I didn't feel empowered at all. I just felt gross, like a cow being milked in front of everybody. And so it made me not even want to leave the house. Like, that was the whole other part of it, was I felt trapped in my house because I didn't want to have to breastfeed in public, and I didn't know how to feel normal doing it, and I knew I didn't want to stay in the house all the time, but how was I going to go out and still feed my baby? It was that whole side of it could be its own story, which I won't go into today. But finally, switching Abby to formula, we both started getting sleep. She started being happier. I started being able to go out and get my life back a little bit. I started enjoying taking my children out to the play yard or the park or things like that, because I could give Abby a bottle and I could sit there and I could enjoy my son and follow him around while feeding him, because I cannot walk and breastfeed at the same time. I don't know how you moms do it. I feel like I need to leave you with something. So all I'll say is this: a good mom does what is best for her child, based on what she knows her particular child needs, based on her own assessment of herself, her baby, her home, her mental and emotional state, everything. A good mom is not one who listens to everyone else and says that you have to do it this way despite it not working. You have to do it this way despite feeling like you're dying on the inside. You have to do it this way because this is what the baby books say. A good mom keeps her baby safe and protected and happy and fed. And however she has to go about doing those things is the right way. And you can't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Now, for sure, you should listen to professional advice. And I think that, you know, if you have tons of people rallying around you and supporting you and telling you that you can do this and you want to do this, there's nothing wrong with trying. There's nothing wrong with saying, let's try a lactation consultant and this and that, if that's what you want. But if you want to give up, if you're ready to switch to formula and someone is insisting like, well, don't give up unless you've done this and you've done that and you've done this and you've done that. Don't listen to those people. They're trying to force you down their road, which may be a healthier road, I don't know, for them, but it may not be your path. And you have to listen to yourself and your own body and your own feelings, and that's the truth and that's what matters. And everybody else is just gonna have to kick rocks. I can tell you this, my baby is just as happy and healthy and wonderful and delightful as she was when she was breastfed. My toddler is now 3. He is a perfectly healthy, happy child with a great immune system who eats fine most of the time. And yeah, we are all doing well, and I think that's what matters. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave a comment down below. I hope that my preface to this didn't make you feel discouraged from commenting. Of course, I want to hear your opinion, and if this video helped you, I'd love to hear how it did. If you have questions, I'd love to hear them. If you have snarky criticism, you can send it, but I'm not going to approve it. And if you have dissenting opinions that you can state in a healthy, constructive way, then of course I welcome those too. Love ya, mean it, always, mwah, and I'll see you in the next one.